I'm going to talk about video games as the ultimate art medium. Okay, so this is like, I'll talk a little bit about the history of video games and stuff. I think video games are amazing and incredible. I didn't even play that many as a kid and young adult. It's just very interesting how the perception of gaming has changed even in the last 10 or 5 years. It's a much more accepted thing nowadays. Like, it was a very specific type of person 10 years ago that was a gamer, right? And it's still kind of like that, but it's just more and more widespread, and there are reasons for that, and I'll talk about that. But I mostly want to talk about gaming as an art form. So just a couple of facts first, because I found that these were interesting. Boop, boop. The first thing that people call a video game was in 1947. They called it was a patent filed for a cathode ray tube amusement device. And it was just kind of like, computers were being invented at the time, and they were working with these things, and it was just kind of a fun little device that they made. And a lot of people say that's the first video game. Other people say it was the Nimrod computer in 1951 that was shown at the Festival of Britain that played the game of Nim. And then there's a lot of other contenders for it. And then you had the first arcade video game, Computer Space, 1971. Pong was in 1972. Pong was made the home version that you could play in your home in 75. And then we get Space Invaders and all of the other ones that came after that. We got more story-based games. And this is a fascinating thing that's happened in history. So it's not the first time something like this has happened. When a technology emerges, and then somebody looks at that technology and they say, hey, we can use this to tell stories. And I'm going to do a video about film. Film was the same way, right? It was kind of a sideshow. No one took it seriously, and nobody thought that it would be important or take off. But a couple of people looked at that and they're like, we can use that to tell stories. That's why I love the movie Hugo so much. And anyway, I'll save that for the film episode where I'm going to talk about the history of film. But the cool thing about video games, I truly believe that they are like the culmination of all art forms. They're the ultimate storytelling medium. And so let's think about it, right? Let's go way, way, way back. Humans have always told stories, and you'll hear me say this probably a million times on this channel, because stories is maybe stories and storytelling are maybe what I'm most passionate about. But like humans, even before we had written language, before we had civilization, before we had these empires that we created and most of the technology that we have, including like stone tools and stuff, we told stories. Right, we told stories, we gathered around the fire as a way that we used and made use of our greatest technology, which is our community. Because that's what humans do. That's why we survive, is our ability to depend on each other and to form sort of these communities. And so we use storytelling as a way to just like unite us, right? And to express a lot of our humanity, and for reasons we maybe don't even fully know. But we told stories, right? We told the stories that we would tell historical stories, and we would tell fantastical stories and all sorts of things. And like, seriously, what's crazy about that is we tell these stories, and we've told the same stories since those just prehistoric times, meaning not dinosaur times, but before history, before we could read and write. And what's amazing about that is like we have entire empires rise and fall, and we don't even know their name, but we tell the same stories as some of those paleo humans way back in the day. Like we have the same themes, the same kinds of myths, the same hero's journey, stuff like that. It's amazing. Like, something deeply human is at the center of storytelling, and I think always will be. But the thing is, we have always used emerging technology to tell stories. So like, our voice, when we discovered language, right? We used our voice to transmit stories, and we had oral storytelling. And then, we created like cave art, and one of the first things we did through cave art is we told stories, and we kept stories there, and there's a lot of different uses that they think they had for cave art, but one of them was storytelling. And the sorts of things that humans were doing with their brains, like the way that they would carve it on their tools even, they had these stories woven throughout their entire existence, right? And then we created music, and we started telling stories through music, and that would supplement the visual arts. And then we discovered acting and stage play and puppetry, like I talk about in another video. Every time we discovered a new medium, we used it to tell stories. And so that progressed, right? We created new technologies. We created like photography, right? We took pictures, we told stories with those, and then we made those pictures move. And we called them movies. And in fact, in my opinion, the first movie is 30,000 years old, because one of the coolest things ever about cave paintings, and I should probably talk about this more in another in another video, but they actually made cave paintings that would move depending on the flickering of the light. I'll get more into that. But anyway, film seemed like the ultimate medium as soon as we could put sound into it. We had visual arts, we had oral storytelling, we had music, we had acting, we had all of these things that we had devised over thousands of years and hundreds of thousands of years of human history. And then we hit that film, and film is barely 100 years old as a medium. It's extremely new, and it has come to just conquer the globe. Everyone watches movies. Every single person. I mean, there are people that don't, but like pretty much everybody you meet watches movies, from all walks of life, all types of people, and there are cultures around the world that don't, obviously, but that's getting less and less. Everybody watches movies, and we share in that experience. But then games. Games are like the movie that you get to participate in. It adds that participatory element. So more than just watching this compilation of art forms, we're participating in it. And I think that that's beautiful. And yes, some people use gaming as an escapism and other stuff, but people use movies as escapism, or novels. And that's the thing, every time that there's a new technology, people will be worried about it. When they started mass producing books and novels, old people got worried that the young people were gonna spend too much time reading books and not pay attention to the important things in life, just like people talk about gaming nowadays. What's really interesting is the gaming industry is already bigger than the film industry, and the stats are staggering. Film worldwide in 2022 made $76.7 billion, which is not a number to scoff at, but the gaming industry was $347 billion. So it's already bigger than the film industry, which I don't think a lot of people know. And I think that the way we look at games, especially from kind of my early days in middle school and high school, it was just silly. It was a waste of time. But here we have these games that are coming out with some of the best storylines, especially in a world where the film storytelling is kind of suffering. It's getting swollen, and people aren't focused on good storytelling as much. And that's something we'll talk about in the movie episode as well. But I just wanted to talk about like the importance of gaming and how I think that truly will become the storytelling medium until we find out what's next, right? We explore more technologies and we see other ways and other mediums that we can tell stories in, which I think is incredible. I think it's incredible that no matter what, we fill these technologies with humanity as soon as we can, with art, with storytelling, and that's beautiful to me. I also think that some people don't realize the impact of gaming because of I call it the short hair grandma effect, right? I made this up one day, and it's every time you see in movies when people dress up as old people, they dress up as old people now. So like women will have short hair, right, for example, but what they don't realize is that those hairstyles, and there's some variations, like sometimes short hairstyles are good for older people because they're easier to maintain and other reasons, but the shorter hairstyles were popular when those women were young. That's the main reason why it's not because they're old. They're not like, well, I need old lady hair now. It's just the type of clothes that they wore when they were young and the type of hair that they had. So, sort of old folks' homes, they'll probably be watching The Office and playing Super Smash and other games and stuff like that, because that's the kind of stuff that we do. And so the demographic of gamers is only going to get wealthier and older, and there's only going to be more of them because young kids are also into gaming. So anyway, I find it absolutely fascinating, and I think that like this truly is the biggest and best way to tell stories right now, and will only grow. And every time this was brought up to college professors, they'd always kind of scoff at that. And I had a cousin who I talked to about this years and years ago who also saw this kind of advent, this development of gaming being a major form of storytelling coming. And it was just funny how a lot of the college professors were like, nah, they just like kind of discredited it. And not all college professors are that way. I don't want to paint any picture, but so many people choose not to see the way things are going for some reason. Maybe they don't want things to go that way, but I personally am extremely excited about the fact that gaming will only be more interactive. It will be more beautiful and better storytelling in the years to come, and I'm excited to see where it goes. Anyway, it's probably, yeah, well, I can talk about a lot of stuff, and some of these videos are more just like, I'm just talking. And so if you like it, that's great, and I'm glad that you're here. And anyway, I love you guys. I'm Levi, and this is Outlandish.